Hello, Steve. Hello, Jill. It's time to game classy.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right, very good.
Bonjour, mon capitaine.
Buongiorno. Yeah, my headset has the new headset I'm using to not sound like a robot.
Which does not work. You still sound like a robot.
Oh well, then everyone's just gonna have to deal with it. It's a better and more expensive headset, and that's the most amount of money I'm willing to spend. So
Yeah.
But what was I saying? Oh, it has a manual mute button. So
No, there you go.
yeah, so
Yes.
that is sometimes depressed because it's like really easy to accidentally push. So,
do me a favor. Can you move the mic somewhat further away from your head? Is that possible?
How about now?
That's a lot better. I think it was just way too close. I think you'll sound a lot better if you're a little further away from the mic.
Well, now it's now facing forward rather than in front of my face hole.
There you go. It sounds better because trust me, you should always have at least 5 fingers away from the microphone at all times. I learned that in Stagecraft 101, Steve.
This is a headset, though. I can't have 5 fingers.
Oh, I could get 5 fingers.
Well, then that's just a fist, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's true.
Welcome to Game Classy, where we condone, endorse, and authorize fisting.
Yes, you just remember it's if it's not from the actual biblical cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, it's just sparkling butt sex.
That's right.
So, we got a lot to talk about. I know we missed out on last cast because I was moving. I am now in Fortress Classy 2.0. So. Man, you should see the game room. It is sexy AF.
I think I've seen most of the game room already.
You've only seen like 2 parts of it. I haven't actually gotten the cases up and running yet. I am actually I was a victim of the pandemic in the very first world kind of way. I went to IKEA to buy some new Detolf cases. I had one. I had 3 at Old Fortress Classy, and I wanted to buy a 4th. And they were all sold out, and they're out of stock right now. You can't buy them. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's wood, isn't it?
It's particle board. It's not real wood, but still.
If I'm not mistaken, particle board is derived from wood, though, right?
Unless it's actually made from the Chinese slaves that they usually use in their production, or Indonesian slaves. I think it's Indonesian slaves in IKEA's production. Yes,
I see.
Yeah. But I actually ended up finding them on Facebook, and it was from some like janky old pawn shop, not too far from one of the game stores. And I was like, well, I'm gonna go to the game store anyway. I'll go to this janky pawn shop, and it's definitely one of those pawn shops that you got to like ring the bell to get into.
Oh, nice.
Sort of, because people get help because they get holed up all the time. So that's always positive and fun on that end. But yes, I am working on the game room, which I haven't come up with a name yet. I wanted to come up with like a fun like fantasy-esque like tavern name for it.
Just call it the game hole.
Just call it the game hole. Actually, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Just call it the game hole. This is the hole where we play our games.
I wanted, but it's gonna be fancy. It's gonna be fancy schmancy. I'm gonna be making it into
okay. Then call it le game hole.
Le game hole.
Yeah.
Le hole de game.
The whole day game.
Le hole. I don't know how you say hole in Spanish. That's a good one to look up. I wanted to do like the green dragon or the red wyvern or the blue owl bear or something like that, a fancy descriptor, or the thirsty owl bear. Ooh, I like that actually. That might actually be it.
Then call it the wizard's hole.
The wizard. I'm not calling it the hole.
You gotta get the hole in there somewhere.
It's much too fancy for a hole.
No, it's a hole.
It's not. It's a very the house.
Apparently, hole in Spanish is agujero.
Agujero. Oh, yeah. So to be el, not la. El agujera de game.
Game. Yeah, let's go. Call it the wizard hole.
The wizard hole, yes.
Or the wizard sleeve, if you want to go, classic.
Yeah, well, the wizard sleeve actually sounds like a prolapsed anus.
I believe I believe the wizard sleeve is an actual old colloquialism for a vag.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, vagina literally means sheath. So in Latin.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So yeah, the wizard.
who says we're not an educational podcast? I'm just saying that right now.
Well,
It's
you
like
could definitely call it the wizard sleeve.
we're learning Spanish and Latin.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, but I have like the reason we bought this house in particular, the reason I bought this house in particular is that the basement of the house was parted out into separate rooms. So it used to be like one huge room and it got parted out into 3 separate rooms. So we have like in the house, we have a literal like rec room for the kids to put all of their shit in. All of their toys are in the rec room. And 2 of the rooms that are downstairs were old bedrooms. And since we don't actually need to have 5 bedrooms in the house, I took over the 2 rooms that were in the basement, and one is my office, which is the actual Fortress Classy 2.0, and then the other room is the game room. The actual game room is the biggest bedroom in the house. I know that sounds kind of a
so now you got a high quality game hole is what you're saying.
I have a very high quality game room. Enough room for my 6x4 table. I got 5 display cases in there. Finally, after 10 years, I have all of my gaming stuff on display, nothing in storage. It's beautiful. I love it. My $10,000 worth of Dungeons and Dragons material is now fully on display. My God, man, is it expensive. I literally just went to Half Price Books yesterday just on a larf. And there was I think it was a complete guide to like dwarves or something like that. Some stupid book that was literally, I think I bought for $5 10 years ago. $65 fucking dollars, Steve. 65, and it wasn't even a good copy.
No, the collectibles gouging is in full swing. It's like for anything. It doesn't even matter what it is. Like the bubble is so. It's so big and so far reaching. If you have anything that you even think is remotely like worth anything to like a nerd, you just put a stupid price tag on it because why not?
Yeah. I'm interested in still seeing what happens when D&D announces D&D 6 or 5.5, whatever they're going to call it, to see what happens with the market. Because usually when there's an edition shift, you see a lot of product dumping. Even if it's older editions, you generally see a lot of product dumping. So it'll be interesting to see. It just in my own experience, like whenever Workshop goes to a new edition, you usually will see a ton of older edition stuff, especially previous editions. So like when Age of Sigmar went to 3.0, all of the 2.0 stuff got dumped. Like you see a lot of that, but you also see when people dump editions, they usually will get rid of everything. Now, AD&D second, which is what I collect, is a little bit more difficult in that arena because it's not quite people have to die in order for that material to start popping up again, right?
Yeah, but nobody dumped their like in really like nobody like role-playing games are kind of like a thing where you don't really dump your current to go to the next. That's more like that's definitely more of a war game thing because
no, dude,
even when
I will tell you with firsthand experience when D&D 5th came out. Let me put it this way. 10 years ago when I started collecting AD&D second, it was fairly common. Like you would find large collections dumped regularly. D&D second, a lot of people held on to their third because they really liked third. When fourth was announced, you saw a lot of second edition dump and a lot of third edition dump. As we all know what happened with fourth. Fourth lasted a while, but it didn't stick around for
fourth lasted like 7 years or something.
Yeah,
it was a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah. Well, it just wasn't hyped. It just was not a money maker, so they never hyped it. But then when fifth edition dropped, everything second, third, fourth edition just went on the market like crazy. I think that might be the last great second edition dump because I think at this point people are holding on to it, but you never know. Like people die, people just get rid of shit. They don't care. And not all of it is like nobody, like my collection is an outlier, right? I think I did the math, something where I have like between 40 and 50% of everything made for second edition D&D, which is a fuck ton, right?
There's two points. There's the collector. The two people who keep stuff are people who still play, and the collectors.
Yeah.
If you're still playing, you don't get rid of your stuff. Like you just don't. So if you're still playing second edition, you're not going to get rid of second edition, or you're a collector.
But not many people do that. Like it's
there's a lot of the vast majority of role players do not get rid of their stuff. There's very few people who actually like dump and move to the next edition. That is as someone who worked in game stores selling RPGs for a really long time, even with 4th edition, like the I'm dumping to go to the next edition is definitely more of a wargamer thing. Like that's like most people keep their stuff unless they are like with D&D specifically, there's some differences because D&D had organized play. So like especially with 4th edition, you had people who were running it in stores. So if you were a store DM, then you would probably have gotten rid of your current edition simply to fund your purchasing for the next edition, because if you're running it at a store for organized play, like you have to have the newer stuff. You can't run AD&D for your your whatever the organized play was named for 4th edition.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying from personal experience in seeing the current stuff. Like you worked in a game store, but you haven't worked in a game store in almost 25 years and 15 years at this point.
Yeah. When I've seen what I did not see the 5th edition shift. So there absolutely could have been like a big change for 5th.
And you got to remember,
possible.
Let's say that you were a teenager in when 2nd edition dropped, right? So that would put you, let's say you were 15 when 2nd edition was in full swing, which was 19, let's just say 85. I know it was a little later than that, but 85 is good because it's a nice round number. Let's say 1990. Say 90 is a good one. You're 15 in 1990. At this point, you would be close to 52 years old.
Yeah, so I think those people are more likely to just get rid of their collection rather than do an edition swap, if that makes sense.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So a lot of people at this point, probably when they were reaching about my age, when they reached about 40, they would have dumped all their stuff, which would make sense about 10 years ago, which was the big dump. The big dump. I like that.
Yes, this is the big dump. I think it has less to do for RPGs specifically. I think it has less to do with edition swaps and more to do with like other factors when people get rid of their collections.
Yes,
because with a war game, it makes perfect sense. Because like, what the fuck are you gonna do with 2nd edition Age of Sigmar books? Nothing. You're not gonna play 2nd edition. You're gonna play 3rd. like there's you don't play old editions of war games. Like that doesn't happen unless you're a dude who plays Old Hammer and you're just posting on. You take a break from posting on white power forums to play with like 27 fantasy miniatures.
I will say honestly, I think that one of the weird things with war gamers is the older you get, the more esoteric your rule sets get. So you start off, you want stuff that's like you get started off in the hobby in like Warhammer, of course, like most people do. Yeah. And then or Warhammer Fantasy, Warhammer 40K, mostly 40K, right? So by the time you get old enough, you go through that period where you're just like, fuck this game. You go to like whatever the number 3 game is in the system.
Yeah, it's never the number 2. It's always the number 3 game.
It's not the number 2, it's the number 3 game. So you usually will be like whatever that is at the time. So Malifaux or Warma Hordes or X-Wing, whatever you end up finding, right? And then you go, you'll play with that for a couple years, and then you'll go back to 40K or fantasy, whatever it was when you first started. And then you reach a point where you're just like, I am going to play the most obscure rule set I can possibly find. I'm going to play a very British Civil War in the Midwest of the United States because I'm the only person who will have all of the rule books for this. And I will build my armies for this game. And I'm only going to do this game that no one will ever possibly play. Yes, I think that's how it goes with that. You know, the war gamers that I go to when I go to like Little Wars and I see them, I only collect the Second Battle of Manassas and
Pico armor.
Yeah, I will only have figures for 3mm Battle of Manassas figures or Second Battle of Manassas figures. You know, it's like,
I mean, I think that's more power to you as long as you're willing to collect enough to like run every game and not expect anyone else to get anything. You're good.
Yeah, I mean, but that's
like if you want to play War Master with your friends, like that's I think there's we've talked about this before. Like if you want to play a minis game, you play 40K, right? Which is true. However, there is a caveat that I don't think we've ever really discussed. If you want to play War Master, you are accepting the full burden of responsibility of every army. If you're playing a game like War Master. So like you could get your friends, I guarantee you, if you have a friend group who plays minis or maybe just board gamers, I guarantee you could get any of them into any minis game you want, as long as you provide literally 100% of the armies.
Nope, you are absolutely 100% correct, and that's where I ended up finding myself. I was actually at that point here in the Chicagoland area with Horus Heresy until Horus Heresy 2.0 dropped, and now everybody's playing it, so I don't really need to worry about that too much.
Yeah, well, apparently 40K is really bad right now, so like it's like
I've heard
there's a lot of people going to 30K because 40K is like just a balance nightmare. Like I guess like we always made like the jokes about how like the new thing is good, but like it doesn't even matter if it's the new thing now. It's just basically like 40K has something that is broke dick busted, and then like after a short while that thing gets nerfed to like useless, and then there's another thing that's broke dick busted, and then like it is just like bouncing around like that's how the game is. And it's not even necessarily new shit, it's just like this thing is busted now, we've made this thing broken, buy it, and then they nerf it into oblivion. So like you basically have to keep buying like entirely new, even if you only have Space Marines, you're buying a new army every like 4 months.
Yeah.
Even like as a Space Marine player, you're buying all new models every 4 months because that's how bad the balancing is.
No, you're absolutely 100% correct. The bigger issue is it's that you're right. The bigger issue is that Games Workshop doesn't know how to handle online FAQs yet. Does that make sense? Like they're like, oh, it's okay, we'll do real time, or like maybe not real time, but we'll do close to real time changes to our game. It used to be you were lucky if you got an update in a rule book, a year and a half after the army book is released, right? So you would, let's say you're playing Space Marines, you wouldn't see an update into for Space Marines unless maybe it was snuck into a White Dwarf, and they never announced it. Like they'd say like, oh yeah, so now this is costs like 7 points instead of 2 points, and people would be like, wait, is this tournament? Is this what is this? And Games Workshop,
is this an actual rules update?
Is this an actual rules update? And Games Workshop would be like, no. Or
sometimes they would go, yes.
Exactly. So you'd be like, what? It would be very difficult to understand what is going on at that point.
Yeah, I remember that was one of the huge upsets back in the days of yore with Fantasy, where they released that they released rules for that Ogre Kingdoms special character on the Rhino, who like the model, the Forge World model that didn't actually have rules, and then they released him as a special character, and they changed he was broken. Like his abilities were really strong, but he lets you take lead belchers as core. So you could take an army of nothing but minimum sized lead belchers, and that shit was broken, like beyond belief. It was broken. And like people were like, is this legal for tournaments? And then they were like, then they had the epic and oft quoted, no, those rules, like all rules we put in White Dwarf, are optional fun rules for everyone. And then it was like, wait. Oh no, they also worded it like any books that aren't in army books too. It was like all rules in White Dwarves and supplements that are not army books are fun rules. Because then remember, like that was instantly like all the Storm of Chaos players were like, wait, are our armies illegal? Like, can we not use these armies?
Yeah, I mean they would be ridiculous on that end. And so getting back to what my original point was that you would have these rules, and that they'd be like, yes, no, maybe, you'll find out. So then what was it like? They started doing chapter approves, like they have the General's Handbook, they have whatever, and they started doing that on a yearly basis, which I think was a good way of doing it. Now they're doing like online FAQs and online fixes, and it's just fucking up everything. Like players are dreading these updates because whenever they do it, it's whatever the hot army was gets tanked. So I know like right now, I'm not 100% sure because I don't play 40K, but I know in just following the zeitgeist of memery online, they've been doing like the custodians just got like completely useless. Like they're useless now. Now, normally that wouldn't be a horrendous thing because in a normal game, people would have like okay, I have my army, oh, it took a hit now. Oh, that's too bad. But the problem is that 40K players are always chasing that tournament high. So, you have these players who are always trying to buy the hottest army that's going to do well at the tournaments. And so that's nuking them. However, people who play like that deserve to be fucked.
Well, the biggest problem with the 40K changes from what I've heard. Again, I also don't play 40K, but I follow it and I talk to some people who do. It doesn't necessarily like. So like the biggest difference. Let's say let's go Age of Sigmar. Age of Sigmar is the dad game versus 40K. Age of Sigmar is more of the like we're drinking monsters, talking, having a good time, and then playing whatever and be like, yeah, cool army, bro. Like that, like that's the vibe is different. Like yeah, there's competitive Age of Sigmar players, but like the vibe is different. So that aside, when balance changes happen in Sigmar, usually. Now, there was a huge shift with second to third, so there's a few armies that are going to, not follow what I'm about to say, like Caradhran, or not Caradhran Overlords, Goblins and the Osiark Bone Reapers. But usually with Age of Sigmar stuff, it seems that the game intention is that they want you to slowly collect an army. They want you to collect the range of the army. And when they make things good or bad, or like when they like do balance tweaks, it's specific things within the lists that get better or weaker. Like right now, like Stormcast Fulminators, their cavalry on like the big on the ground dragons. Like those units have not been good for a while. Now they're fucking ridiculous now. They're one of the best units in the entire book. Yeah, so like they're one of the oldest models in that range too. But like they weren't good for a long time. Now they're super good. When they get nerfed, they're gonna nerf the Fulminators. They're not going to nerf Stormcast. It seems like with 40K, it's not they don't it's like Iron Hands or whatever, like say like the Iron Hands fucking long strike butt lord is too powerful, right? They don't just nerf the Iron Strike Iron Hand butt lord, they just like destroy the Iron Hands. They just make the army bad.
Well, part of the problem with that is that, and I think this, is that 40K is much more customizable than fantasy and than Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
So let's say the butt lord has and let's say that the Iron Hands have a specific gun. Now that gun in combo with butt lord is ridiculous. So they nerf the gun. However, the entire army takes that gun. So now that they nerf that gun for butt lord, the entire army.
Whole army's worse. Yeah.
That's a very
no. That makes sense. But that's not being related to the customization makes way more sense because with AOS it's like you have the war scroll. Like this is it. Like this is your war scroll. Like, so like they don't even have gear. Like even the gear options have been shifted in Age of Sigmar to be like for example, the Annihilators, the super new the Stormcast Terminators, the dudes with the hammers and the shields, and then the dudes with the great hammers. The great hammers are not a gear option. They're literally a separate war scroll. It's like you're taking the war scroll of Annihilators with hammers and shields, or you are taking the completely separate war scroll of Annihilators with great hammers.
No, and that's exactly what it is. So, but that's what I'm saying is like Games Workshop doesn't know how to FAQ. They don't. Mm-hmm. They just make everything fucking insane. Like it's so swingy now that people are not great about it. It's just going to take a while for Games Workshop to get used to this, 2011 way of doing things, 2012 way of doing things, as opposed to how they've been doing things for the last 40 years. But that also goes with, it's like old timey companies not being able to handle new things, and they try to do new things and then they just fail miserably.
Well, and also not understanding that shit gets solved really fast. Like that's the only thing. Like, you have to be able to react quickly because like that's what killed the fucking card game. The Age of Sigmar card game. The Age of Sigmar card game got killed because they refused to do anything about the most broken leader. Like they had a card that was just they had a card that needed to be banned, and they just like didn't ban it. They were just like, nah. we're just gonna let it rock. And like it just like very quickly completely killed their game because no one like you couldn't win if you didn't use the it was the Godrak. I think it was the Godrak, the one at Work Boss. Like if you didn't use him, you were gonna lose. Like there's a good chance you're losing like right off the bat if you like flipped up and you're like, oh, he doesn't have Godrak, cool, I'm gonna win. Like that was like a very common thing when I was playing that game. It's just like, oh, he's not using the best card, cool, he's gonna lose.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, but I mean, gaming companies don't have any in the world of the internet as it is. Game companies have no right to be as bad at FAQing on the semi-regular as they are.
And speed. You have to be faster. Like the internet solves it. I understand you're not going to be as fast as the hive mind. Like the hive mind, that's what one of the things that was killing Magic online for a very, very long time. People would solve the metagame extremely, like people would solve the metagame within a week. Because everyone is sharing decks, everyone sees the data of the winning decks, everyone knows what cards are good, so the meta gets solved incredibly quickly, and then the gameplay gets stale incredibly quickly because everyone realizes what's happening. So like you know, obviously for a card game it's a little different because their release schedules are, you know, their balancing is tied entirely to release scheduling and banning, and you don't want to ban cards if you can avoid it if possible. But
and I think that's interesting. I mean, we could talk about, because so the thing with 40K, the interesting part of 40K with this whole thing is that people desperately want 40K to be competitive, like a competitive tournament game. And it
has to be like everyone's playing it competitively. It doesn't matter if Games Workshop doesn't want it to be competitively. They have a competitive game on their hands. They need to manage it like it's a competitive game.
And you go back and it's like, you could look back to when Games Workshop shifted away from a competitive 40K. That was like 5th edition, which is actually probably the edition that I like the best of 40K, because it was the least competitive in terms of like tournament play. It was, I can't give any examples off the top of my head because of course I never prepare for this fucking podcast. But that would be the least one. And that was probably when they were like the most, like when it went down the most, when 5th edition came out. 5th and 6th edition is when 40K I think dipped the most, because people couldn't play it tournament wise. So they started going to games like Warma Hordes so it could be more competitive.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that was when Warma Hordes was the rising star.
Yeah. And now look where we're at. And then they came out with, you have 6th edition, which doesn't do well, but it's a little more competitive. And then you have 7th edition, which is a slightly more competitive game. But at the same time that they're releasing 7th edition, 40K, all of a sudden, you have the Splendor, you have War Machine, and you're having a Horus Heresy. Now, Horus Heresy is not designed to be a competitive game. Horus Heresy is designed to be a fun, themey game for like people to paint and show off their fun models, right? Their themey stuff. So now you have Games Workshop releasing a 2nd edition of Warhammer Horus Heresy, and you see a huge backlash against people who are like, so what's best to take for this army? And you literally see all the people who've been playing this game for like what, 5-6 years at this point, going like, you don't take anything competitive. That's not how this game works. Like these people are literally getting screamed at on the internet. Like if you want to play a competitive game, go play 40K. Like if you want to build a competitive army, go play 40K.
But that's the thing that's funny about that too, is that by its very nature, Horus Heresy will lend itself better to competitive armies because it's just like everything is more equalized because it's all Marines.
Yeah. Well, no, it won't lead to more competitive play. It'll lead to better play, like more balanced play.
Yes, that's what I mean. More balanced play. So like more balanced play leads to better competitive environments. Like when things are like, if there's 10 armies and only one is good, that's a terrible competitive environment. If there's 10 armies and they're all roughly the same, that's a great competitive environment. And this is just internal and external balance. That's the great thing. So I would imagine that Horus Heresy has both very good internal and external balance because every army is Marines.
Yeah, I mean, the big problem is that I wish I had a better chance to go through the rule book since, however, it was literally released like literally like a week and a half before, like a half a week before I moved my house, so I haven't really had a chance to actually even sit down and look at the rule book.
Nice.
So yeah, it's been a rough couple weeks just getting everything set. My body feels like it's falling apart at this point just from moving everything. Everything is moved at this point. Well, like everything from the old house and the storage units are now moved into the new house. Right now we're just setting everything up and getting it to where we want to do it.
Okay.
So I have yet to take a look at the actual rules for. I think they're pretty similar to the beta rules from everything that I was seeing so far. There may be a couple like point tweaks here or there, but whatever the case, it's nothing to nothing that I have to like be like, oh my god, they killed this army.
Speaking of two rules, I picked up a couple of different games. I picked up Kings of War 3rd edition.
Yes.
For my plan to do 10mm Kings of War.
Yeah. See, this is probably one of the more ludicrous Steve things, and this is good. This goes back to our discussion of if you want to do this, you have to be able to supply the armies for everyone.
Yes, and I'm just gonna make some 10mm Kings of War armies. That's all. It's just like just going to make 10mm armies, and they're gonna be functional in Kings of War because Kings of War convert. Like you can kind of 1-to-1 convert War Master stuff to Kings of War. The only caveat is you need to like make sure your units are properly shaped. Like that's the only thing that's different, but it still works. Like 2 strips of Kings of War or 2 strips of War Master is a Kings of War quote unquote regiment because it's quote unquote 10 models. So 2 strips is a unit or a full size. 1 strip is a troop, 2 strips is a regiment in Kings of War. So you'll have 1 less stand in a full unit of 10mm King's War than War Master. But other than that, like it still works.
No, yeah, you're right on that. It does actually it works fairly well for it. You won't need to do anything fancy. And by the way, the army that you were talking about doing with that, the Patreon that I'm not going to talk about right now, just because for whatever reasons, I have some of the figures for it. One of the months, that has some of the other figures for it, I don't have yet, and I will get it soon. But
cool.
Yes, we could talk about a little bit more about that online and offline.
Sweet.
So
yeah, sweet. That sounds good. Yeah. But yeah, so I figured that'd be fun. It'll be inexpensive and easy to store. It'd be good. And then the other rule set that I picked up, you're never gonna believe it.
Malifaux.
Never gonna believe it.
Malifaux.
No, it's not Malifaux. It's not Malifaux.
Bolt action.
BattleTech Alpha Strike.
People love BattleTech Alpha Strike.
Well, do you know why? Because you and I have definitely made fun of BattleTech completely justifiably as a miniatures game.
It's because they cut out a lot of the math. They use cards.
There's nothing. BattleTech Alpha Strike is you have a card that has your points, and you just take the mech, and then you just play a game using regular terrain. Like it's actually, you know what they did? They turned BattleTech into an actual miniatures game.
You mean it's not a math game? It's not a TI-84 calculator game?
It's not a TI-84 calculator game played on a hex grid. It's not. It's just an actual, like, you put your mechs on a table with terrain. You use a ruler. I know. I was shocked myself.
I was shocked, sir. The fan of our Facebook page, or I don't know if he actually listens to the podcast, but if he does, Cliff was showing me about Alpha Strike at Adepticon this year, and so I was like, "Oh, that actually looks pretty fun." I mean, I'm not gonna play it, but it looks pretty fun.
I got pulled in. I got pulled in by Joe. He's like, "Yeah, I bought like a full army," and I'm like, "All right, that's fine." Like the commitment is really low. It's it's cheap because
it's like what you got to have like 5 mechs. It's nothing.
I mean, even if you wanted to go with even if you went with the full range and you bought every mech flight, which is like every variant you'd want or every type, I think it's like $150.
Yeah, it's not.
That's the quote unquote going all in price.
I forget. You can remind me. Does Alpha Strike have a grid map?
No.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't use the grid map.
It uses an actual board with like terrain and like a ruler. It's like an actual miniatures game. And then the figures are all pre-assembled, hard plastic. So like.
There's like, nothing to it. It's like a very it's a very grognard game in that it's
spray and paint. You're good. Yeah, so it should be.
Plus, there's a pretty healthy community for it out around here too.
Yeah, so it should be fun. That's it. Like the
Yeah.
low commitment, already done figures. I mean, I've always liked BattleTech. I just hated playing the fucking miniatures game. It was terrible.
Because it was like the most math dependent game we've ever seen.
And also, like, you want to talk about customization, like we were just talking about 40K, dude. Fucking the BattleTech customization was actually like absurd. Like spending like multiple nights figuring out how to exactly optimize your super heavy with the right amount of heat sinks so you can get enough PPCs on there to do the all-out assault. It's like it is.
Todd at Grognard Games, one of our local gaming stores, is a big fan of the BattleTech. I don't know if he plays Alpha Strike. I know he likes the old school BattleTech, but he was telling me about how they would play a game, whereas you had to create a mech for someone else to play in their big game. So you would literally like you'd want to create the worst mech possible for the person to play with, and then
give them no heat sinks and all high heat weapons, so their mech just like overheats every turn. Yeah, that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, I remember he was telling me about that one, and it always sounds interesting. I'd love to go and like try it out, like either Alpha Strike or the original, because I haven't played the original in probably close to 15 20 years at this point. But it's definitely a fun game, and you know, people, it's growing right now. I wouldn't be surprised if that pops up in like maybe the top 5 minis games in the future, because right now it's like 40K definitely. I wouldn't doubt if Horus Heresy spikes up there. Age of Sigmar, I know it took some hits with 3rd edition. A lot of people dumped it, but it's still sticking around. I don't know if it's number 2 or not. I know X-Wing and what is it? Star Wars. I can't think of the name. Yeah, Legion is still doing really well.
No way. No way.
It is. It absolutely is. People do not. They finally released the official models for Mandalorian after like 4.5 years of that show being out. It boggles my mind that people are still are like still playing that game. It's like you don't have to. There are far better rule sets.
I only play Star Wars games.
But it's just that you could play Star Wars games. You just don't play that rule set. It's
I only play Star Wars games.
Yeah. All right. We have to log off and restart again. So what are you going to ask us to take to commercial break?
Just go with the classic. After these messages,
we'll be right back.
And now back to the show.
I just have to say, I know it's recording right now, but one of these days I'm going to fuck it up somehow, and it's going to really fuck it up, and we're going to lose some cast space on this. I should just upgrade, but I'm just cheap, Steve. I'm just cheap.
I mean, that's fair.
I think that's what it comes down to. I'm just a cheap human being. Yeah, we were.
Sometimes I'd say.
So actually, I did want to talk about. We don't necessarily have a paid sponsor, but I did want to talk about one of our listeners. Raza has his Kickstarter going for Going Native, Rise of the City States. It's about halfway through its goal. There's 5 days left, so we're gonna hope. I just wanted to boost it up a little bit and hope make some more money to finish up the campaign. He does physical minis for his that are mostly Native American. Well, it's all native stuff.
Just various natives, because there's Native American, there's South American. I think I saw some Maui as well. So
yeah, just
native peoples.
Native peoples. All really great stuff. There's tapirs. I know you like the tapirs.
I do like tapirs. I like the giant starfish, and I'm hoping.
Oh, that's right. He has that giant starfish model.
Giant starfish mount. Yes, very cool. I'm hoping that one day they do the Ainu.
Oh, but I mean, so it's definitely some interesting, just some interesting models and different models. Very old school looking. So I would definitely recommend checking it out and pledging a couple bucks maybe to just get some cool figures that you normally wouldn't get for your island and for your models. I was going to say for your islanders, but Pacific Islanders. But check it out. It's the Going Native Rise of the City States. So check that out.
Yeah, it looks sweet. I mean, I really fucking love that starfish. The starfish is really cool.
The starfish mount is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one of the cooler ones. Yeah, and if you play any models agnostic, I mean, there it looks like it's tied to a different company's rule set as well. I don't want to say the name because I think I forgot it, but it looks like there is a small like tribal warband skirmish game that he's cooperating with to use his minis with their rule set. So that's good. Any other models agnostic is good. Like I could see this being a great source for like Frostgrave Warband or
the Frostgrave that Archipelago, whatever it's called, Ghost Archipelago.
Yes. Yeah.
So the rule book is it's called Tribal. It's by Mana Games, Mana Press.
Yeah, Tribal. That's what. Yeah, I think they're New Zealand. I think they're Maori. But I'm not sure. But yeah, very cool.
It's Australian.
Australian. Okay, very good. Yeah. So that would be Aborigine.
Yes, but they do have they definitely have New Zealand natives on the cover. So
okay. So but it's very
Maori,
cool. Yeah,
I couldn't think of the word off the top of my head.
Yeah, very very cool. I like that they have their cultural monsters as well. Like there's like the big like the orca monster, the giant starfish, all sorts of cool stuff. Very very sweet, very cool looking campaign, and their classic old school style minis. Like they're old school sculpts. They're metal, so we like that.
Yes, we do like that. I mean, me not so much anymore, but I like them. But
I'll still take metal over resin any day.
Well, here's my thing is that if I'm going to buy minis, I want to buy metal, but I just don't buy minis anymore. So
okay, there you go. Yeah, I think that's fair. I like for me, it's either it's got to be hard plastic or metal. Like I'm not spending money on resin miniatures. Like
if I'm spending money on resin minis, I'm just spending money on the resin to print my own minis.
Yeah, that's a different thing. Like if it's a 3D printed thing, like there's a different level there. But I mean, I'm not like it's like I'm not going out and buying fucking Finecast. Like get the fuck out of here.
So speaking of friends of the podcast too, I did want to mention this. So on Prime right now, not Prime, on Shudder right now, there is a movie that got released called The Revealer. I don't know, have you watched it yet?
I have not watched The Revealer. No, I was my next Shudder watch was going to be Mad God, actually.
Oh, you're into Tool, are you?
I mean, it looked awesome, so like I definitely want to watch it.
It's the world's longest Tool video. Is
that what it is? It's just the world's longest Tool video.
It's just there's something about it.
That sounds lit. So like I want to watch it now even more.
What is it? I laughed because who's a big Tool fan is Pat B. Pat B is a huge Tool fan. So we laugh at I laugh at him because it's like Tool is a metal music for people who like to say "good sir" when they're talking to people.
That's really funny because I used to really 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 like Tool, and boy howdy did I ever use the term "good sir."
Yeah, but Tool is a band for guys who sometimes get upset when their chain wallet gets caught on door handles. So, but yes, it definitely looks like Tool is fine. I can't listen to more than like one or two songs at a time. It's fine. It's good music. I'm not arguing anything again. Tool is not bad. Tool is just definitely Tool. It's an acquired taste, but it's not a turn off, so to speak. It's like, what it is? It's like when you eat fancy olives. Like if you like, I like olives, right?
I like olives.
It's like I can have some olives, and I enjoy the salty taste. But then there's the people who get really into olives and are like they like a very specific kind of olive, and they can tell like you get the hints of like this type of olive. Like you could definitely taste the oakiness of the soil in which this olive was. It's like that's Tool. Like I don't need that in my life. But the Revealer, actually, one of the stars of it, Kato Ace. She's actually a girl that I play D&D with on the regular.
Nice.
Yeah, she's a burlesque star in Chicagoland. I interviewed her for Planet Arbitrary years ago. That back when Planet Arbitrary was a thing.
Yes, back in the days of yore.
so she was telling me about this during one of our gaming sessions about like maybe close to about a year ago. And she was saying it was coming out on Shudder, and it was like it finally came out now, and so I definitely wanted to talk it up a little bit. I haven't gotten a chance to watch it all. I watched like the first 10-15 minutes because I've been busy as fuck. Yeah. But I mean, it looks cool. It's a different vibe than what I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be a little more silly, but it's a lot. It's a serious movie. It's got a I
generally like Shudder, and I generally really end up liking Shudder exclusives. So like the last one I watched was Dave Made a Maze, which I really enjoyed.
Is that the one with like he makes a pillow fort or something like that?
He makes a fucking cardboard maze in his apartment, but when they go into the maze, it's gigantic.
Yeah. I haven't watched that one. Yeah,
it's very weird and it's very good. That's the only review I could give that film. It's very weird and it's very good.
Yeah, well, the last, I think, I don't know if it was a Shudder exclusive that I saw. I think the last one that I really watched was Spine of Night.
I really liked Spine of Night.
Spine of Night was great. You know how like I say Mad God is the longest Tool video of all time? Spine of Night is like the longest Megadeth video of all time. But a Megadeth video that doesn't have Megadeth in it, which was what it needed. That movie needed Megadeth.
It could have been Megadeth, or you could have picked any of those, like any of the Napalm Records power metal bands, like Unleash the
absolutely. 100%.
Unleash the Archers would be really good for that. Actually,
my biggest issue with that movie was it did not have a metal soundtrack, which is what it needed.
It was very heavy metal too. It is kind of weird now that you mentioned it. It's kind of weird that they didn't just take the opportunity to be like, yeah, we're just gonna use a bunch of cool metal bands.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was just, and that just could be because of my not love of heavy metal the movie, but my like fond remembrance of heavy metal the movie.
The heavy metal the movie is very inconsistent. I will say you that. I watched it not too long ago, and like there are some parts of that, there are some sub stories in the movie that are quite good, and then there's others that are not so good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there are some that are really good. And then there are parts like there's some really good memorable parts of that movie, and then there are parts that are just like, why is this still going on?
Yeah, what's happening? Why is this film still continuing?
Yeah, so I'd love it if like Mad God, for example, I've not watched it yet, but if it has like a Tool soundtrack, it's probably going to be great. But I don't know if I can watch 90 minutes of Phil Tippett stop motion animation. I just don't know if I can do it. I don't know. I don't know if I have it in me.
I really liked House, and that movie was all stop motion. So
House, the movie with George Wendt?
No, there's another movie called House. That's recent. It's a Netflix exclusive. It's also quite good. It's very surreal and strange. It's also stop motion, and it kind of has like it doesn't really have a Tool video vibe, but it's very weird.
It's about Hugh Laurie. He's a doctor, and he's solving unsolvable medical issues. Right?
Incorrect. That television program is House MD.
Oh no, it's just House. It's not House MD.
Are you sure? I could have sworn there was a little tiny MD.
No, well, I mean, I think that there might be, but if you look it up on I am on the IMD, it's under House.
That show was it might be called The House. Possible.
It could be. It definitely does not have William Katt in it, though, right?
No.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought
I could be so free. Another wing and a prayer.
Who could it be?
Believe it or not,
it's just me.
Yes.
Believe it or not, George isn't
at home. Please leave a message at the beep. I must be out. All right, pick up the phone. Where could I be? I love he's just listening to it and eating popcorn.
I think one of the greatest things I've done lately is my rewatch of Seinfeld. I forgot how good some of those early episodes are. They are just so fucking good.
Yeah, Seinfeld's got some fucking big hits. Like there's some real big hits.
I mean, I like pour one out for Bookman.
Bookman, you're a library detective, and your name is Bookman. Yeah, this is real funny, don't you?
Hey, that episode had me. I was rolling on the floor laughing at that episode.
Yeah.
It's such a stupid concept, but it's just beautiful
Yeah, it's
execution.
It's ridiculous. Also, I also really, really love the episode where fucking George is arrested, and then Frank Costanza's like, "Who came up with this plan? George. He's not clever enough to come up with a scheme like this." Lane's like, "Yeah, you got that right." Oh, what's that supposed to mean? It means whatever you think it means.
I was it came up the other day because we were eating at we were eating something. We were eating ice cream. And I had an ice cream cone and I was eating it with a spoon. And
what do? Use your hands?
Exactly. Like that. My wife asked me, like, why are you eating it with the spoon? I said, what do you eat it with your hands? And she didn't get the joke, of course. And then literally Pat B, our Seinfeld expert, popped that up on Facebook. Like literally, I don't know how it happened. It was like, I guess it was like some kind of some gestalt, some psychic. He tapped into like the psychic gestalt of America. And but yes, the anyway, we're way off topic on that one. The Revealer. So check it out. Kato's in that one, and of course, I'm always gonna support a fellow D&Der on that one.
Yeah, sounds good.
Even though she does play the sexy tiefling, which I'm not a supporter of, but whatever, to each their own. Yeah.
Well, you know me. I like my D&D like I like my D&D, which is fighter, magic user, thief, cleric, hobbit, dwarf, and elf. Those are the classes.
Did I ever? I don't know if I ever talked about this on the podcast, but I had the cure for the sexy character. I don't like the sex crazed character in D&D. Like you're usually newer players are the ones who come up with like the
bard
nymphomaniac bard.
Everything. Yeah, they try to seduce everything. Right.
Yeah, it's basically you create a cleric who is a youth pastor.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that they're a youth pastor whose god is a sex god. So like they take all the fun out of sex because they're a youth pastor.
Mm-hmm.
So they're always like, hey, listen, man, listen, when you have Jesus in your life, it's always a three-way. It's you, Jesus, and someone else, but it's a three-way.
You gotta rub your hands on that greased up body of the Lord.
Yeah, but you make it so like uncomfortable and stupid. Like that's how like it's. In order to play that, you have to be really good at improv, and you have to like stop a person right there. And it's like, hey, you remember, in order to properly get with this girl, you got to make sure you're using protection. What we're going to do is we're going to sit here and we're going to pray. We're going to pray for your protection so you don't get the clap. You know,
you just gotta make them save against horrible venereal diseases every single time they seduce anyone, and eventually they die. Eventually they just die. Like, yeah, you pee blood and pus until you die. Congratulations. Yeah.
You got yourself a venereal disease. Well, I'm just happen to be a cleric, so I'm gonna heal that for you. Here, put your penis in my hands. Put your penis in my hands. I'm gonna heal you with the power of our Lord.
The Lord is going to come down upon thee.
Yeah, just place that ball sack in my hands. Place that festering boil, pus-filled ball sack in my hands, and I'm gonna heal it. So you pray with me. You pray to Jesus that we're gonna heal this ball sack. You know. Sort of, that's what you got to do. You just got to make it super uncomfortable for them, so that way they will stop being the horny bard, which is a stupid character to begin with.
For me, I would just not re-invite a horny bard player to my table. That's generally
re-invite.
Yeah, let's go ahead and not re-invite the horny bard player.
You get one horny bard. That's all you get.
Yeah, you get one try. I don't know. I don't get the. It's like this is. I don't know. I think it's really weird. It's very awkward. Like,
what do you think would be a good? What do you think's a good class for a book detective? Like, if I was going to run Bookman in D&D, what class would he be? Would he be a cleric?
Like in what edition? Like the current edition?
Let's say 5th edition.
I would actually probably do a ranger.
Ranger would be a good one.
I would do a ranger, and then I would just make all of your specializations related to like books and like tombs and stuff, and like the concept would be like, you're a book detective, which means you're always looking for like ancient tomes and stuff. So maybe like a favorite enemy being wizards or something like that.
Well, you're a book detective for like whatever the Ravens Bluff Library or Waterdeep Library, and like your job is to go out and find these overdue books that were taken out of the library.
Libraries in D&D.
Well, yeah, they do. That's you got to have.
You'd work for a mages guild, and you'd be hunting after rogue mages who took like tomes of forbidden lore.
Yeah,
and you have to get them down.
It's a library. Yeah, they checked out the books and they never returned them.
The book of forbidden lore. They're forbidden.
Yeah, who checked out the book of forbidden lore? They're forbidden.
Yeah, they're forbidden. You're not supposed to do that.
I never judge someone by the length of their hair, what time of music they listen to, but God damn it, when you come into the New York Public Library, you wear shoes.
Oh, it's good stuff. Yeah, I'd say a ranger would be good. A ranger, and like I'd just make everything related to like maybe hunting down like mages or scholars, that kind of thing. Like hunting, like I said, hunting down people who have tomes of forbidden lore.
Tomes of forbidden lore, of course. Yeah, I think I could make that happen. Maybe I'll run Bookman as a character at some point.
So you have to your name has to be like Salias Bookman or something.
Yeah,
it has to be like a real fantasy first name, and then Bookman.
Yeah, I think you could pull that off. Maybe I would run him as like a dwarf, a dwarf ranger named Bookman.
That'd be good.
Yeah, just like a grumpy guy, who and then you could be the homeless gym teacher, whatever his name was.
With the baked beans teeth.
Sorry guys, sorry for the Seinfeld bit, but I've been watching a lot of Seinfeld lately, and it's fantastic.
D&D Seinfeld, the Seinfeld crew play D&D.
Well, there was a comic strip from a long time ago that had this Seinfeld D&D. I have to see remember it was like at the end it was like Newman shows up.
Hello Newman.
Hello Newman. It was oh god, it's fuck. Here it is. I found it. Maybe I'll link this on the Facebook page again. But nice. It's old. I mean, this is probably like 12, 13 years old at this point.
A veritable relic.
Yeah, because it's George saying like, I rolled a 5. Now what? Now you take damage. What? Just 15? 15? Jerry, that adds up. First, you get 15 here, then 10 there. Then it's over, Jerry. It's all over.
TPK.
TPK.
She TPK'd us, Jerry. A TPK? TPK. Who's the first session? The first session.
Then Kramer comes in. He's like, what did I miss? It's like, George took 15 damage. 15. That adds up. Yeah, I'll link it. It's a funny little bit. God, that's old. That's old internet at this point.
Well, it's great because it's just good because you can apply the Seinfeld dialogue beats so well to like a D&D scenario. It'd be really funny.
Yeah.
Like I could see that being like an actual like web series. You're just like, you never deviate from that base concept of just it's the Seinfeld cast playing D&D. It's their weekly session.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty interesting because like if you think about it, Kramer is like an elf. Like Kramer would totally be an elf in the game. Just because he's weird, he's got some weird esoteric knowledge, and he just the party doesn't quite relate to him. He's just kind of around.
Yeah, he'd totally be like a sub elf though. He'd be like specifically like a wood elf or something. Yeah, he wouldn't be like a regular elf.
No, yeah, but it's just like he's just like my friend Dwarf Sakamano has this. Then you'd have Jerry of course has to be a human because he's the everyman when it comes to.
And they have to constantly be dealing with someone new added to the game because Jerry's girlfriends keep rotating.
Jerry's girlfriends keep rotating. Yes.
Yes.
I think George would want to be like an elf, but he's actually rolls a halfling or something like that. It's like I've always wanted to be a dwarf. He's like, but you picked a halfling. It's like I'm going realistic.
They're stocky. They're powerful.
It's everything that I'm not, Jerry. It's everything that I'm not. They're even taller than me.
Have to be a half thing.
Yeah, and and then they're playing their game. Of course, they're playing their like level 5 characters. Then Newman joins the group, and he's got like a level 15, Death Knight cleric or whatever. And he's just like, you can't play this in the game. It's too high.
He's an official character, Seinfeld. Here's the organized play stamp right on my character sheet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Well, Jerry's DMing. That would be the thing.
Yes, that was perfect. Yeah. No, Jerry would DM. That's for sure.
Yeah, Jerry would.
Or Elaine. Elaine actually would be a good DM. I think Elaine would fit the DM slot pretty well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Elaine would be the DM. You know why? Because she would do stuff like she would be the person who describes the rock. And then Jerry would be like, well, I look at the rock. And she's like, it's just a rock. And he's like, I'd like to roll my perception. She's like, yeah, it's a rock. And he's like, but you described it as it was something special.
Yeah, George is like, she really talked about the rock. There's got to be something to do with the rock. I also want to look at the rock.
What's with the rock?
Kramer comes in with the Cheetos. He's like, what's going on? There's a rock. Oh, I investigate the rock.
It's like, it's a rock. Is it a nice rock? Yeah. Yes. I'm gonna put it in my pocket.
What kind of rock? It's shale.
It's shit. What kind of rock is it? I don't know.
It's really good. It's good.
Yeah. And then at the end of the game, he's like, I throw the rock, and then it kills whatever the last creature. He's like, see, I told you that rock was special.
Perfect. Then you got the end. Then you have one of the epilogue or the after credits bits, which just cuts over to Niles and Frasier sitting at a table, and he's like, unfortunately, Niles, your vampire lord was hit for 13 aggravated damage, and you will no longer be part of this coterie.
This has been the most dangerous crane.
They're playing White Wolf, obviously.
Yes. Damn it, Niles, why would I take that? Why would I even do that? I'm a vampire.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
Yes, as I said, the most dangerous crane.
The most dangerous crane.
Yes. So is there any other actual gaming stuff that we should talk about in terms of like gaming stuff? I know that the 40K stuff I know is big and Horus Heresy. I know they're going to be doing a reveal, like they're going to be doing like one of those online reveals in a week or two for Warhammer, just in case we wanted to, in the future.
New Magic set, Double Masters. If any of the listeners are Magic players, it's a big reprint set. So, it's coming out next week. I'm sure you were all aware that it exists, but if you were not, now's the time to get boxes because it's in high demand and it's running out.
What's the name of that bird game that everybody likes? Wingspan?
Wingspan.
Have you noticed that there's been a higher rate of board games being released that are bird themed?
I mean, that makes sense. It's if you look, every time there's a big hit from any manufacturer, there's always the like rush of clones. Like when Gloomhaven came out, there's like all those dungeon crawling games like exploded onto the scene after, like that's what brought back Hero Quest, was Gloomhaven's success.
Is this because of is this like the Asylum version games of the popular board game? Like when when you're playing like
man.
Watching Atlantic Rim, you're
I wouldn't say it like that because that implies that the imitators are always worse than the imitated, which is not true with board games. There's very frequent, like the first deck building game that like hit big was Dominion, and there have been many deck building games since, and many deck building games that are much better than Dominion since. Even though Dominion was the first, but like,
what we didn't talk about?
What?
The paint release for Games Workshop.
Oh, the new shades and the reformulated shades. They look crazy. If they work as well as like it showed, I mean, shit, if they work half as well as they showed, they'll be ridiculously good.
I mean, I'm like, well, I also think it's really funny that they discontinued all those air paints because as I think I said, 5-6 years ago when they dropped those, it's like, who would want to pay the same amount of money for thinned paints? Like the same amount, like whatever, 2 ounces of thinned paints, when you could just buy the 4 and the 2 ounces of the regular paints and thin it down and have twice as much because you just make your own. It's not like Games Workshop paints aren't thin enough to just put in an airbrush as is. They pretty much are. It's
Right.
just
I
it
mean,
was
for
such
me,
a ridiculous system.
the other thing with the airbrush paints, obviously, like the Games Workshop paint pots are like absolutely not conducive to putting in an airbrush.
Yeah, well, the paint pots are awful to begin with. I don't understand why they're changing their shades, their washes, because their washes were probably the best washes on the market. Like, you didn't have to do anything to them. They were fantastic as is. And now they changed it up, and it's like, well, why are you changing these? They don't need to be changed. Stop changing things that don't need to be changed, Games Workshop.
Well, the new ones look really good. Like, I really like the way the new ones operate. They look good. The problem is I would not like, so seeing the pic. So here's my issue with them being an across the board change, and I do agree with you, but the problem is I saw the two pictures, the side by side of like the old formula, how the wash operated, and the new formula, and I'm like, the new formula looks great. Like, that looks really good. However, what you just showed me were two products that are now different uses, because one of them looks like the new one looks like it's basically, to try and explain it as fast as possible, it looks like a very shortcut to panel line. Like, it looks like it really only hits the crevices and does not tint other stuff. Whereas the other wash hits the crevices darker but tints everything.
I like the tint. The tint is important.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, you have a product, if anyone's using the wash for the purposes of it being a wash, they want the tint.
You want the tint.
The other product looks really good if that's the effect you want. Because they changed the actual results of the product, it's now no longer the same tool. It's like it's a hammer and a screwdriver. When you want a hammer, you need a hammer. I guess you can use a screwdriver as a hammer, but it's going to suck.
Yeah. Jerry, I painted my own figure. Well, that's a dwarf. Your character's a halfling. It's like, I've always wanted to be a dwarf, but your character's a halfling. Doesn't matter. I painted it. It's painted. I spent 4 hours. I spent 4 days painting this figure. I'm going to use it. Then Kramer comes in. He's like, I brought my figure. It's just like, that's unpainted. You can't bring an unpainted figure to the table. Why not? It's a legal figure, Jerry.
Eventually George breaks and he's like, all right, the game store was sold out of halflings.
But the problem is for someone like me, I commit to a bad paint scheme. I'm gonna follow that paint scheme until the day I die. So if I have an army that I'm unhappy with the paint scheme that I painted for like one figure, I'm still going to follow that paint scheme. Why? Because I'm a glutton for punishment. That's
the one thing though is you can use the Army Painter shades. The Army Painter shades work just as well as they're literally the workshop washes.
No, they are not, because the second that any sort of water touches them, they are reactivated. They are not good, and I am going to stick by my statement that the Army Painter shades are not good. I guarantee you that people are going to be anti-Army Painter shade, because the second any sort of water touches them, they're reactivated.
I've never had that experience, but
yes, right. And people will tell you that's part of the problem with them is that they will, the second water touches them or anything water based touches them, they get reactivated. You have to seal in between every coat, every color of that Army Painter shade. So keep that in mind when you're buying those. And people know I'm anti-Army Painter paints anyway. I think that they're shitty. I'm just going to be honest there. I think they are the Kmart of mini paints. That's for anybody who doesn't get that reference.
All I gotta say to that is tell it to the sales figures, baby.
Tell it to the sales figures. Yeah, people buy it.
Donks are up.
Yeah, people buy it because it's cheap, and then they realize that there's a reason why it's cheap.
I mean, that's just a weird thing. Like, I've used their shades many times. I've never had their shades reactivate on me ever.
Let's get a professional painter in on that one. Let's ask Rob Hawkins what he thinks of. Do you think Rob Hawkins ever gets upset that they use Hawkins in, or do you think he's proud that they use Hawkins in Stranger Things as like the name of the town?
I don't know. Speaking of Stranger Things, I can't wait to watch the last 2 episodes.
My prediction is that next the big villain of the 5th season. I have not finished the 4th season, so I don't know if they introduce anything. But the big villain of the next season, you know who it's going to be? Tiamat.
Ooh, that's a good call.
Yeah, because I mean they have Vecna now, but it will be I bet you money it'll be Tiamat.
Tiamat, yeah, I can
Tiamat.
see that. Yeah, I mean that there's really no other like. I mean, Lolth is probably too esoteric. So yeah,
Well, I
probably.
thought Vecna would be, but whatever.
Well, Vecna's been in the video games.
That's true.
Like,
He has.
and not just in the CRPGs. Vecna's been in multiple video games. So like if you've ever played D&D, you've probably heard of the Hand or the Eye of Vecna. So,
That's true. The Eye of Vecna and the Hand of Vecna are pretty famous.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that Vecna's only I'm only dealing with second edition here. Vecna was only in like 3 books. Which was Vecna Lives, Die Vecna Die, and Vecna Reborn, if I can name the 3 that I think he was in. And not including the Monster Manual, which I think he was also in with second edition, or so one of the big manuals he was in.
Yeah, not in the basic Monster Manual, but yes, he was in one of the other other manuals.
So we're running low on time here, so
well, I mean, I'd be interested because I mean, I've never obviously I've painted models, I've used their washes, but I've never had them reactivate. So I really want to know. Maybe it's because I usually let my washes dry like a really long time. I don't know.
It could be. So anywho, go to the Game Classy Facebook page is the best way you can get in contact with us, even with Facebook's awful. Like they just purposely try to make it so that it's impossible to use.
It's so hard to keep track of anything.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out why it says we have 21 notifications. Like I'm like slowly going, I think I've hit 2019 and I'm like clearing everything, but like everything should be marked as red, but it's still just showing me 21 big like exclamation point notifications. And I'm like, where are these from? I'm like, look, I can't, like everything's marked as red. Like I cannot figure it out. I'm like, it's driving me mad.
It's mad. It's driving me mad.
Driving me mad.
Yeah, I really don't know either. It's like, and it's like they send you to this page where it's just like, I don't know what any of this information needs. I don't need any of this information.
Right.
I
don't need an extra page.
I just want to look at memes. Like it's nice to see how many people looked at my meme, but I don't care that much. But anywho, I do want to point out that the Queen of England is still alive, by the way. We were worried about the last 2 weeks about whether or not she was going to be surviving, but she is still alive, much to the chagrin of Americans. It would be nice if she died on July 4th.
Is it the chagrins? Most Americans I know who care about the royal family are all about dick riding the royal family.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It'd be great if she died on July 4th.
Oh, I see.
Yes. Anywho, Facebook page. You could go follow me on Instagram at Game Classy Joe. I've been posting some pictures of my gaming room just in my stories. Once the gaming room's all done, I'll have it all up and a nice little tour of Fortress Classy 2.0, as well as the what is it called, a thirsty owlbear, or I think I'll call it the thirsty wyvern. That's what I'll call my my game room. But I think that's a good one for it, or maybe the thirsty beholder. Nah, no one's gonna get that. The thirsty rust monster.
What about the Hawkins hole?
We're not calling it the hole.
Come on, the hole is right there.
What's the Spanish word for hole?
We remembered it. It was like aguero.
No, I thought that was was that
aguero hole. Aguero.
Yeah,
Aguero. Yeah, Aguero. That's hole.
Oh, you could say El Hoyo.
El Hoyo.
Yeah. I mean, I think El Hoyo would be is probably more appropriate translation, since Hoyo means like pit.
I see.
Yes. So El Hoyo de Classy. I don't know what's classy in Spanish. As long as we're looking.
Isn't it clásico?
It could be. Well, I know that's classic.
Clasia, maybe.
Well, we can ask Dan. Dan listens to the podcast. De buen tono. Muy pera. I think muy pera. Well, no, muy pera is more like, ooh, you look classy. Ooh, you're muy pera. But whatever. So anywho, you can follow Steve at command on Twitter at command_throw, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Awesome. So Steve, for until next 2 weeks.
Only a small band of brave men and women stand between the world as we know it and the unutterable evil of the old ones, whose minions plot the return and rule of their mighty lord, Great Cthulhu. As a player, your characters are investigators, the guardians of life and sanity. As the keeper, the game master, you'll both evoke the atmosphere of the fabulous 1920s and reveal the cosmic horror underlying the events of the time. The fast-moving Call of Cthulhu rules are fascinating fun for ages 12 and older. The box contains 7 books, record sheets, character silhouettes for play, and more. This is a complete role-playing game. Nothing else is needed.
Forgot to talk about the fucking box set. God damn it. It's a great well, let's just talk about it right here at the end, because we already did this, but it's fuck, that's a good box set. There's nothing special about it. We got our Kickstarter in from the Chaosium Kickstarter.
It's just an S tier box set.
It literally is. My problem is that all of the there's a lot of fucking sheets of paper in there for handouts.
Yes, there is.
I wish there was a better way of organizing that than how it is, but it's a great box set. I have it right next to my original first edition Call of Cthulhu box set, and it is near identical in everything. Its weight, its look, not
great.
its weight because
art's the same. Yeah, this is obviously heavier because there's more content in it, but
yeah,
the art's the same, the design's the same. They basically, Chaosium, they took the adage of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and they actually did not. So yeah. They did a great job.
I would be very happy if Chaosium would do more Kickstarters like that. I know this one took a long time, but you can, COVID, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, box sets are, as we've discussed before, box sets are a dead art for role-playing games. So doing box sets is really cool. I think it's I think people are hungry for it too, because people buy those stupid Beetle and Grimm $800 ones for D&D. So there's definitely people who want box sets, and I'm sure there's people who would want ones that are not $800 fucking dollars.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna spend $60 on a book for D&D, I would much rather spend that $60 on a nice box set that has lots of stuff in it, as opposed to just a hardcover book that will sit on my shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of my favorite memories were the Al-Qadim box sets, playing those with friends.
All right. So until next time, adios.
Later.
Game Classy.